obviously we're specifically talking about, incentivizing management team during the transition and during the sales process and beyond. You kind of settle that. They get comfortable with it. So they, it's not it could be, again, it could be some heated discussions. Hi, everyone. Today, I thought we would talk about one of the important aspects of a transaction that doesn't get a lot of attention early in the process, but becomes critical to getting a deal done, a sale of a business. Want to welcome everybody. My name's kdee, president and founder, Osage Advisors. And welcome back to our podcast, The Ins and Outs of Selling a Business. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about retaining key employees in management, not only during the transition period, but post-closing. The buyer is going to look very, very closely at the next level of management below the ownership. And they need to get comfortable that that team is engaged post-closing. Otherwise, it could jeopardize getting a deal done. So we're very fortunate to have with us today a good friend of mine, Joe Gilley. Joel is founder, president of Promus Financial. Good morning, Joel.
Morning. How are you?
Great. Promus, for our guest today, Promus Financial, works with large corporations, closely held companies, family businesses, helping them design strategies and compensation plans, not only to retain key employees, but also to reward them and keep them engaged in their businesses. And Joel, this is like your sweet spot, and we really appreciate you being here. And as I said earlier, the importance of management team, not only in running your business day to day, even if you're not selling, but during that transition process and then post-closing is critical to a transaction. So would love to hear a little bit about how Promus works with business owners, because you do a lot of family businesses as well as your big clients, and to help them putting plans in place. Because for most of the time, business owners don't have plans, right? What ends up happening is at the end of the, at the 12th hour is that we come up with some kind of, before they go to market, a stay bonus, because they do have to talk to their key people. And, hey, I'm going to sell the company. I'll pay you a bonus. Once we get the deal done, you get paid, and then we move on, right? There's ways of moving about that way before that step that that your people will be engaged when you're ready to go to that sales process. And would love to hear from you and how Promus works with their clients.
Sure, great. Well, thank you. Great introduction. So you hit the nail on the head that the reality is, like anything else, the earlier on that you plan, the better. Begin with the end in mind, all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure you run into this all the time, Keith, where you got a business owner that wants out in the next 4 months, and you say, well, if we would have started this a few years ago, our numbers might be 150% of what they're going to be today. So that really starts with, we believe that every organization of significant size ought to have a program in place whereby there's pain if their key people walk out the door, because the ownership is going to have pain losing those key people. So that's a bigger picture issue that you nailed on the head. When it comes to ownership transition, it's even more important. Our experience is that a lot of owners, just out of ignorance, not in a negative way, think that there are only two ways to accomplish this. One is big buckets of cash to retain their key people, and the second is sharing ownership. And the reality is, oftentimes, if not most times, that's really not the best solution. There's a perception that those are the only two tools available to them. And the reality is that a well-designed, what the marketplace calls a non-qualified deferred comp plan, or a deferred compensation program, the casual marketplace might call them golden handcuffs, is often a much more effective way of retaining and rewarding, as you said, importantly, your key people. So it's really the better way to proceed.
Yeah, so it's a good point because, as you said, and I've ran into, I can give you 100 examples over the last 20 years of where, the lack of communication at the right time in the process with your key people, it could be detrimental to the transaction because if the
Right.
buyer starts to feel or read into a situation that are these guys going to stay? Are these women going to stay? It will cause a kind of like a pause, right? They need to get,
Right.
well, we need employment agreements with these people. Well, I don't really want to introduce you to these people yet because I'm not sure we have a deal yet. So it's kind of like the chicken and the egg. Is like, when do you introduce certain people in the transaction? So you don't want to be in a position where your employee or your minority owner or a family member, has leverage over you, right?
Right.
I mean, because that just creates a lot of stress in the business owner's mind, and they, as you said, they typically don't plan for this aspect early on to get these people engaged, knowing that, hey, here's my 5-year plan. I want you to participate in it, and if you're here, and here, there's a nice payday for you, but you need to be there. So what kind of plans do you guys typically, when you meet with an owner, give them some options? What kind of plans would you say would be appropriate for, a middle market business, a family-owned company? Maybe it's a single owner, maybe it's a family. It could be a family business, right? It could be 4 or 5
Right.
members or 2 brothers or 2 sisters, whatever. But they still rely on that next level. So,
Right.
what kind of examples of plans would you guys work
Yeah,
with?
that's a great point. In publicly traded corporations, you generally have equity or participation shares, SARs, et cetera,
Right.
to use as methods of long-term compensation. In a family-held or closely held company, you oftentimes do not. And so if your last name does not match that of the family ownership, you're not going to become an owner. However, oftentimes those folks can be, wouldn't say this in front of many family owners, but can be more important than the folks with the same last name, CFO, COO, that kind of general manager, et cetera. So the program, and you made a great point. You said 5 years before, during, and after. So that's exactly the strength of our programs, that they give you the opportunity of, first of all, targeting just very specifically to those key employees that are most important to the organization, as opposed to like a 401k plan where everyone gets as required to have equal participation, et cetera. And you can tailor things like the vesting schedule when you actually are in receipt of, or when the values are actually yours, regardless of the situation. So we can create a vesting schedule that aligns with the ownership's retirement/sale projected schedule, to make sure that the people that may be of similar age to he or she are going to be in the seats. We design programs that, just as you said, sort of breach over the chasm of the ownership transition. And then for the new owner, which is very important, as you mentioned, sort of take off from there, so that it's not just about getting to the finish line of the sale, but it's about keeping and retaining and rewarding the key people as the company goes on into hopefully growth and a long, successful future.
Well, that's and having those plans in place with these key people, it not only rewards them, but it keeps them engaged, right? So, again, from when we're selling a company, what's your transition goals and objectives, right? We actually put that right in our book, our SIM, of what the owner's looking to do. I want to work for a couple of years and transition out. Find my replacement. I want to work for 6 months and retire. I want to retire at closing. I want to roll equity and stay in. All those are good, But the buyer wants to drill down. Like, hey, if you're going to leave, who's going to run this place? Do I need to bring somebody in? If I need to bring somebody in, then how's that going to affect when I recast your profitability? Is it going to, is it going to be the same? Am I going to reduce it because I get to bring a new management team in? We have situations like that where we have older ownership, right? That's a big part of our practice when people looking to retire or do something else, and the buyer looks at it and says, okay, you're leaving, your sister's leaving. But you don't have a COO, you don't have a CFO, you're relying on your accounting firm, whatever, and they'll come back and say, look, we need to invest X amount of money. So even though you're showing 2 million, 5 million, 7 million of EBITDA, we really feel we need to, we're going to have to invest $1 million in bringing new people into this thing, right? But if you have a strong second line and they're well incentivized, like you're talking about, and you have a plan in place, then you can point to that as an owner and say, look, I've been planning for this a long time, and I have some great people who really I can't live without, who really run the day-to-day. And I've put plans in place, and they are incentivized to stay here today, tomorrow, and 5 years down the road, and here it is. And so all of a sudden you take
and the proof to that is there are a number of valuation assessment tools out there. I'm guessing you probably work with one or more of them, or at least have seen them. And one of the elements of value is, do you have a specified plan to retain and reward your key managers? And if the answer to that question is yes, that creates a increase in valuation or theoretical valuation,
right,
versus the answer being no. Because just as you say, not every transaction has the desire to keep management in place. There are transactions where the larger company might be coming in and essentially buying client list or technology or something. But in most transactions, there is a necessity to have seasoned, proven management that not only understand the business, know where the skeletons are hidden, et cetera. And anytime you have transition like this, there's some risk that people say, well, I don't know. People fear uncertainty and they start looking elsewhere. And as the new ownership, you don't want that. You want them locked and loaded in their seats. There's a number of transactions we do where we actually have a dual vesting schedule where you're rewarded for sort of staying in place over the period of transition, and then the same program kind of then takes over on a go-forward basis, perhaps based upon the key performance indicators of the company or sales growth or whatever it is that is important to ownership, both prior ownership and new ownership, in terms of creating a go-forward incentive.
Yeah, it's interesting because you brought up just earlier about these valuation assessment tools, right? And that's all about what our podcast is about. The ins and outs of selling a business is proper planning, all aspects of your business, so that you can maximize value, find the right buyer that's the right fit, so you can comfortably transition out either today or down the road and feel that it's in the right hands. The buyer has the same valuation tools. I've been to many seminars over the years where there are firms out there that basically sell their tools, valuation tools, to the strategic buyer or private equity firms that use that as when they're analyzing different aspects of the transaction. And if you can line it up, we're specifically talking about, incentivizing management team during the transition and during the sales process and beyond. You kind of settle that. They get comfortable with it. So they, it's not it could be, again, it could be some heated discussions, and owners get, typically, right, it's an emotional sale, but when they have to go and talk to a couple of key people that may have worked there for 25, 30, even 40 years, say, look, guys, I'm 70, you're 60, you got a runway. I don't, I'm selling out, but I got the right thing. And they're going to look at you, look, I've been working you for 25 years. Who is this? What's it going to bring to me? all this stuff. Obviously, communication is critical during the transition period, during the management teams. They're comfortable. But they're going to look at, say, hey, I got a great compensation plan here, so I'm locked in and I feel good about it, right? You want to take doubt away from your key people that, our company, our ownership has treated us well, me well, and a couple of my other peers well. And so I'm more comfortable moving forward without that doubt. We always say, because I've been brought into these situations, I've had with key people that I'd never met before, and they don't know, and talked about what the opportunity is for them. And it's like, look, it's your decision, but you should give it at least a year, and just see how it all goes. In most cases, people are still there. The companies we sold 10 years ago, 20 years ago, some of those people are still there. They haven't left. They actually are very happy, right? So,
right.
It's kind of like planning at the early stage possible for your key employee. Not just key employees. I'm asking you about this one, is like when you have a hole in your team that you're trying to fill and get ready to sell, like a COO, to utilize a tool, a compensation strategy like you guys do as part of their comp package, you're going to attract a much higher level of skill in a lot of cases.
Yeah, that is absolutely right. And not only are you going to be able to attract without having to increase the dollar signs to an area that might be uncomfortable. For example, you might be looking for a high level, manager, producer, executive, whatever you want to call the term, and the compensation that they're used to in their market is a higher level, and would actually disquiet your team, because you're going to be paying this executive on a percentage basis more than the rest of your team is getting, and they're totally unproven. They may have a great reputation, but the fact is they're totally unproven. Rather than paying a higher level of cash, which you can't pull that back. Again, we often use a deferred comp plan that defers the reward to the future. And so if you end up with a bad hire, and that can be for your existing ownership, or it can be for the new buyer, if you end up with a bad hire, many times our plans don't begin vesting for 5 years. So in the event that it doesn't work out, you haven't lost the 3 years, 4 years of paying the higher level of salary to that participant. And that goes a little bit off script from the preparing to sell, but it's all really the same element, that you'll say our people are our greatest asset and our most important resource. But so that's true whether you're in operation mode, in pre-sale mode, and in cleanup and maximize the thing mode, shine the floors and polish everything, or if you're the new owner going forward. And so it's really a program that spans, as I've already implied, sort of spans from whether it's a pre-sale or a situation or not, into the sale and beyond, into the ongoing new organization going forward. And it can be a lot cheaper than sharing equity. A lot of companies think, well, I gotta give away 10% ownership to the management team to lock them up and get them to stay. If it's a strategic sale and the new buyer thinks they can really jack the value and the performance of the company, that's very expensive compensation. And it's obviously going to be minority ownership. So it's not going to change the ability to manage. But what we have found is most people, at the end of the day, they say they want ownership. And this is from a minority standpoint. What they really want is participation. What they really want is to know their value. So if they move the needle, they want to participate in that value. And what we found is deferred comp is a much cleaner mechanism than giving a 2% ownership or 5% ownership in the company.
Yeah, I think just kind of to wrap things up here, and Joe, I'd like to have want to have you back maybe and talk about some of the strategies you've implemented. But I think the takeaway for our audience, for me, is, and we've talked about this in the past, is it's not a cost to you. It's an investment. You make an investment in your plant and equipment be more efficient. You make an investment in your technology to be more productive. You make an investment in your people, right? And using comp strategies to do that is going to maximize the value at the back end. Like you said, equity is expensive, and giving that away is going to cost you a lot of money. But if you make an investment in your people up front, you'll get that back 5-6 times, down the road when you sell your company. So,
Right.
Which is critical. So Joel, this has been great. Like I just said, love to have you come back. Maybe give us a couple examples of strategies you implemented for our audience, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
Great. So, well, thank you, everybody. I hope you found benefit from today's podcast. Again, my name is kdee. I'm president and founder of Osage Advisors. Osage Advisors is a boutique investment bank working with closely held and family businesses looking to sell. Our typical clients are revenues of $5 million and up. To learn more about us, you can visit our website at osageadvisors.com or give me a call at 860-767-3273, extension 1001, or feel free to shoot me an email at kdee@osageadvisors.com. Thanks again for being here, and have a great day.